So on to the last topic for tonight, guys. There's a topic that I personally want to discuss because I was recently watching the show called What Would You Do? And I thought it would be interesting to talk about this. I want to ask you guys, what double standard that exists today do you think will always continue to exist? And I want to start with Oscar.
Okay, so the one that I was thinking of, and uh, whether or not you think it'll always exist, kind of depends on how hopeful you are in society improving. So if you're a little bit more cynical like me, you would probably be inclined to think that it's always going to be a thing. So the double standard I picked, and it's actually especially meaningful because we're about like a week and a half away from the anniversary of the El Paso shooting. So when it comes to shooters, if the shooter happens to be like black, Latino, or Asian, they're branded as like a gangster or they're some sort of rotten human being by the media.
Yeah.
If they happen to be Muslim, they're immediately branded as a terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a white guy, then it's always a lone wolf. It's not that he was a part of some sort of uh, like toxic culture. It's that he was just a lone wolf with mental issues. I've noticed that like that's the trend you see with the media all the time. And it's such a big issue because it kind of takes away from the fact that there is a lot of domestic terrorism that occurs in this country and it's a very real problem. And I think most of the lawmakers, especially like on the GOP side, will not take any action to actually do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to do gun reform. They claim it's a lot of them kind of claim that it's like mental issues, like a mental issue problem,
Yeah.
or sorry, not mental issues, mental health problems.
Yeah.
But even then, even if that were the case, that kind of opens the discussion for we should just have universal health care that includes psychological, mental health, mental well-being, and
Yeah.
yet they wouldn't support that either.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, it doesn't feel like they really want there to be a solution. It just feels like they're gonna just wait until there's another shooter to take attention away from the previous one.
Yeah.
At least before the pandemic, that's how I was really feeling.
Yeah.
And I
So
think that's a double standard. It's a double standard that I think is going to be around for a long time. I don't know if it's going to be around forever, but it's definitely an issue that's going to be around for a while.
yeah. So do you think the reason why like this double standard continues to exist and government allows this to happen, do you think it's because the government sees it as a form of population control?
So I don't know if I would go that far. I think there's a sufficient amount of people in power that still have a very racist mindset
Mm-hmm.
and they're not open about it. Granted, some people have been emboldened in the last 4 years to be open about it.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people are just closeted and they're okay with it continuing it to happen, for it to continue to happen without doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And they're not pushing for any sort of solution.
Yeah.
I think population control, it might be a stretch only because, I mean, it's not gonna do a big, it's not gonna make a big difference with the population. Like if you think about the number of people that have been killed, even just by with the pandemic,
Yeah.
it like it doesn't really, it's been a small, very tiny percent of the actual global population that have been killed by this huge worldwide pandemic.
Yeah.
So we're talking about mass shootings. That's fewer people that are being killed. And granted, every death is very significant.
Yeah.
I don't think it's sufficient to account for like a population control movement
Yeah.
or anything like that.
No, I see. I definitely see your point. I just hate that every time a Caucasian mass shooter gets arrested during trial, it's always the mental health issue as their line of defense.
Yeah,
Even with
it's not
the
like they could just be, a bad person.
yeah, especially with the El Paso shooter in his trial, that's exactly what the his lawyers are using as their defense. Even though we all know it's bullshit, but it's their way of trying to get him from getting the death penalty, just
Mhm.
like they try to do with most of the mass shooters. To me, which makes no sense considering that most mass shooters try to at least commit suicide before they're caught.
Well, yeah, they want to take the coward's way out. They don't want to be held accountable.
I mean, if they were going to kill themselves anyways, why not give them the death penalty, and stop trying to play the mental health defense all the time?
Yeah, and if I read correctly, I think with the case pleading not guilty,
Yeah, he was pleading not guilty.
and I think they were using that exact excuse about the his psychological state at the time.
Yeah.
which it's not. I don't buy it.
Yeah,
You can't have this many people that commit mass shootings that all happen to
yeah,
have the same issue when
yeah,
we clearly have this culture that is very, very, very racist.
yeah,
And even in his manifesto, he had claimed, or he was talking about how the great replacement of how Hispanic people are multiplying in number in this country and
hmm,
about whites becoming a minority in the future.
yeah,
Never mind that they weren't the original people of this place in the first place.
right,
And yeah, so that is just like how much more obvious does it need to be? That's a smoking gun right there.
yeah,
Literally, like, and well, figuratively, of course.
mhm,
So you can't use that issue of mental health, I don't think,
yeah,
because he very clearly intended this was premeditated. He had a manifesto. He
yeah,
was on 8chan. He was posting all these, or he was a participant of 8chan, which of course has a very extreme right-leaning, extreme racist setup and environment, I guess.
yeah. And let's not forget, like he didn't choose originally to shoot up that Walmart. He was actually going to go around to look for places to shoot up to see what had a massive population of Hispanics at the time. And he just happened to stop at that Walmart because he was hungry and he went to the McDonald's there. And then that's when he realized there's a ton of Hispanics there. Let me go get my stuff and do my thing, you know? Which is terrible. And I hate that they're treated with respect when they're getting arrested compared to
They took him alive.
yeah,
He had a gun, and they took him alive.
yeah, it reminds me of
Yeah.
that one. I think it was a black guy in California. I think he killed a cop or two, and they found him like in a cabin at the forest, and they sent like hundreds of cops, and they just like Swiss cheesed him.
They just blew him away, man.
Yeah, they didn't even give him a chance to like surrender. They just literally shot up the place.
Exactly.
So, and I'm like, okay, I was like, so this dude kills one or two cops. You guys send a whole force after him. This guy kills over 22 Hispanics, and you just casually take him out of the car, give him some water, put him peacefully in your cop car. No harassment whatsoever. Even gave him a private cell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's very, very different in how people are treated. I mean, if you're black, you can't even carry candy without getting shot in some cases like
yeah,
that.
you can't carry a candy, a cell phone.
A cell phone.
You literally can't have anything in your hand.
And yet this guy was able to have firearms and still somehow was taken alive and
Yeah, and that's the thing that pisses me off too is that, like I said, the only time Dave Chappelle said this himself, that the only time the National Rifle Association ever got involved and suggested any type of gun reform was when the Black Panthers showed up at Washington with their rifles, and
yeah,
in their head it clicked like, oh my god, these black people have access to guns. We need to change this.
exactly.
So
And just to like kind of clarify, I'm not saying that the shooter should have been killed immediately. I'm just saying that everyone should be taken alive. And
yeah,
like unless they absolutely cannot, and they're like you have immense danger, uh,
yeah,
they should not just shoot guys for minor things like $20 bill that was, I don't know, counterfeit.
yeah. Well, granted, they didn't shoot him.
Yeah,
I
granted,
mean,
but they shouldn't kill people, is what I'm saying.
yeah, that's true though. I agree with you. I think that double standard will always exist no matter what.
Very ugly thing, and it makes me feel a little bit of despair because I look at the protests that were done in the 1960s and how hard people fought for equality.
Yeah,
And it's 2020. This is still happening, and it's just what is the solution here? Because nonviolent protests have clearly not done enough, and then now that people are having massive protests, and some of them happen to be violent, like you have government agents in my city right now that are snatching people up,
yeah,
Yeah. They're about to start up in Albuquerque,
and Chicago, right?
which puts me on edge,
yeah,
because I got family there.
yeah. And
um,
and like I said, I've said this earlier when the protests first started. I honestly feel like I God to hope I hope I'm wrong, and I hope I'm 100% wrong, but I feel like there's gonna be like some type of civil war.
man, I hope not,
That's what I'm saying. Like I hope not,
because
but
I don't think that this society can handle that.
it definitely can't.
No,
So
the people that are alive now are not the same as the people that were alive during the original Civil War. So
yeah,
as bad as it might sound, I think we're soft.
yeah, definitely.
And also, if you just look at the people that would potentially be fighting each other, you have one group that is very, very, very well armed pro-gun, and
Hmm.
that is more on the common sense gun legislation side, who would be less likely to carry firearms. So,
Hmm.
some sort of civil war, I would be on the losing side of it. I don't have any firearms.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Sure. So,
What
well,
am I gonna do? Take my knife?
right?
Saving
I was like, don't test me. I'll bust out my ninjutsu, dude.
Right?
Right?
Yeah, I got a baseball bat with your name on it, buddy.
Thank you for that, Oscar.